Good day, everyone, and thanks for joining today's webcast, Unified Storage for Enterprise AI. This is part of the Tintri Ask the Experts webcast series. I'm Ram Narayanan from the Tintri Product and Solutions Marketing team, and I'll be your host today. This webcast, just so you know, is intended to be not so much a presentation, but more of a discussion, a conversation, actually, that we'll be conducting with a couple of experts in the storage space. I'll be asking them a number of industry and technology related questions. And we also encourage you to submit questions as well, because this is intended to be an interactive sort of session. We'll talk about in today's session the market conditions that are driving the popularity of AI workloads in the commercial enterprise space. We'll also discuss some of the specific enterprise AI use cases and why they're becoming more critical to business success. And we'll explore the types of storage infrastructure that can help organizations get the most value from their AI workloads and their data, and help avoid the pitfalls that can block successful AI deployments. So before I introduce our speakers, we'd like to get an idea about you, what you and the audience are hoping to learn from today's webcast, or what questions you're hoping that we can answer. We'll try to use your input to help guide today's session. And if you could, just please take a minute and use the Q&A feature on your screen to submit your questions. Okay. So the first guest I'd like to introduce today is Ken Clipperton, who is the lead storage analyst with the Data Center Intelligence Group, also known as DCIG. DCIG analysts provide informed third-party analysis of various cloud, data protection, and storage technologies. Ken has over 20 years of IT experience, including roles as a system administrator, a server administrator, and an IT director in the higher education space, including several colleges and universities in the Midwest. Ken has also served on multiple corporate advisory boards, statewide technology commissions, and national user groups. Ken, we're very delighted to have you with us today.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here.
And joining Ken today is Rajiv Sharma, currently the product management lead for the Tintri IntelliFlash product line. Rajiv has nearly 20 years of experience in product design, product management, and technical marketing roles in the storage, server, and network industry. His background includes pivotal technology roles at IBM, QLogic, Novell, and Western Digital. Rajiv, thanks a lot for being here today. So Ken, before we start, would you like to say a few additional words about DCIG and the analysis and intelligence that your organization provides?
Sure. Yes, DCIG analysts all have industry experience and actually shepherded major projects through organizations that we served. And we focus on continuing to provide actionable guidance to decision makers and also translating technical capabilities into business advantage, terms that the business will understand and can appreciate the value of that recommendation. And we do both independent analysis of the marketplaces, as well as provide sponsored research.
Great, thanks, Ken. It's great to have you here. And thanks again for all your help with the research that you provided from DCIG. So here's our agenda today. Before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone that this is a live webcast. You can submit questions via the Q&A window at any time during the event. We'll try to answer them as we go along. We've also reserved some dedicated Q&A time toward the end of the event to address any questions that we couldn't get to during the session, as well as any additional questions that you might have. The webcast is also recorded, so if for any reason you need to leave the event, you'll have an opportunity to watch it at a later time. So first we're going to talk about the drivers for artificial intelligence in the enterprise space. We'll talk about the effect of AI on infrastructure requirements, particularly storage. We'll talk about unified storage, both what it means from a conceptual level and what are some of the advantages that a unified storage solution can provide. And then we'll take a dive into the technologies. We'll look at Tintri IntelliFlash, and we'll also look at some of the technologies on the DDN side of the house with our A3i product line. We'll talk about how both IntelliFlash and DDN technologies can be used to support and enhance AI environments. And then finally, as I mentioned, we'll have an opportunity for Q&A at the end of the session. So let's go ahead and get started. I'd like to kick things off with a question for Ken. Ken, let's talk about what's happening in the industry today. We hear a lot about AI. Why do you think we're hearing so much about AI today?
Well, really, we're experiencing the democratization of artificial intelligence technologies and workloads. I mean, they're no longer the sole domain of research organizations and universities. You know, artificial intelligence and machine learning are just not niche anymore. And enterprises are discovering that they can use AI to reduce costs, increase revenue, and even create new revenue streams. AI is being used to prevent fraud, to make product suggestions, to identify effective therapies, and to accelerate discovery. For example, just using video analytics, it's being applied across many industries, optimizing product placement in retail stores, monitoring production lines in manufacturing, optimizing traffic flow in cities, and enhancing public safety.
Great. So let's explore that a little bit more. You know, what do you think specifically when we look at the expanded interest in AI beyond traditional research and development areas and into the enterprise and commercial space? What specifically do you think has changed in the past couple of years that's driving that transition?
Well, certainly AI is much more visible to folks. The drug discovery process associated with the COVID-19 pandemic has certainly elevated its visibility. So have our individual experiences with AI, including like speech recognition or conversational AI. So we're actually getting individual experience with it that maybe is triggering some additional thought about, hey, how could I create value for my organization using those technologies? Also, there have been significant advances in the core technologies that enable AI and machine learning with reference architectures built around those technologies. One good example is the emergence of the NVIDIA DGX A100 platform, which has simplified the process of deploying AI. And finally, solution providers, including public cloud vendors, are accelerating time to value by making AI easier to implement through pre-configured and actively maintained AI solution bundles. For example, image analytics for medical imaging is now available in pre-packaged solutions for identifying and classifying disease in the human body. This includes analyzing image data to identify tumors in the brain. There's a separate configuration for identifying tumors in the breast or colon or liver or lung. So again, it's much more available and it's been packaged in a way to make it easier to implement.
So given that we're seeing these changes, you know, hopefully AI solutions are getting easier to implement, as you mentioned. What effect do you think that's had so far? Where do you think most organizations are on their AI journeys? Are they still investigating? Many of them moved over to the proof of concept stage? Are they running pilot projects? You know, do we see a fair number moving into production? What are you seeing from your perspective?
It's certainly getting real. Although I think for the majority of enterprises, in terms of running their own AI infrastructures or applications, still exploring those things. Certainly, we're hearing about organizations that have stepped through, you know, from investigating to proof of concept to real pilot projects, and then moving into production. I believe that would be a minority of enterprises at this point, but that is changing pretty rapidly. I don't know, Rajiv, what's your perspective on that?
Well, that is our experience has been too. While engaging with customers, different customers are at different stage of their journey. There are some exploring options that how they can improvise internally and how they can use AI-based solution to optimize their infrastructure. That is also a part of our intelligent infrastructure conversation with customers. At the same time, there is a new set of workload to growing within the enterprise space, which is leading a conversation toward that, that what do I need to do? So there is a set of customers who have already done the like investigation. There is a set of customers who are still exploring, and a very small set of customers who have successfully implemented it and seen the benefit of it. So it's happening. That's the way we see it also.
So Rajiv, what are customers trying to accomplish with these AI workloads that they couldn't before? Here we have some what we believe are popular AI use cases. Maybe you can talk a little bit about what customers are trying to accomplish.
It's at multiple fronts. It's a very good question, Ram. As Ken mentioned, right, that AI use cases are growing. Now there are prominently valid use cases. There are pre-packaged solutions coming, which is driving the adoption of the AI use cases. As I was saying that our conversation with customer, we see that it's happening at two fronts. Internally, there is a demand to the infrastructure needs to be more adaptive as per the multi-type of use cases, on-premises cloud. So there are multi-factor aspect to that. How intelligently you can leverage a storage solution which is across multiple type of workloads, connecting it to the cloud. And second is that there are consumer-based use cases like video surveillance, where the like adoption of the AI is at prime, that where the cameras are connected over the IP, data is analyzed, and then data is stored. So there's a need for growing use cases. Our interaction with DDN also has put up that within enterprise, there's a need to understand the better meaning of the data, what is generated by the business, either by application set, either by data center, or end user consumer applications. But that's where the Ken was giving an example of retail, right? The positioning, there are and the life science use cases, where those are growing within the enterprise and demanding that how you can serve the data to my analytics applications, which are running on multiple platforms. So that's another conversation we are seeing on this field happening with the customers.
Okay, so from what you're saying, it looks like enterprises are really looking for a combination of HPC, high performance computing type of performance and analytics, but without sacrificing the advanced data management services that you were just talking about. So Ken, based on your analysis, what do you think businesses and IT departments need to do to move quickly to support AI workloads that create new value?
Ram, I think it starts with awareness, first of all, about the kind of problems that AI and machine learning are solving, and then the opportunities that they're creating. So a good place to start is by seeking out exemplars in your own industry. What business results are they achieving? What was their path to value? What obstacles did they have to overcome? And so to learn from the experience of your peers who are perhaps a couple steps ahead of you. Another way to move more quickly is to find a solution provider that has a track record of success in deploying AI solutions. Again, ideally within your industry, but perhaps across other industries where they've got a similar set of challenges or problems.
So when we look at some of these obstacles that might affect an organization's ability to enable AI, there's issues associated with data center infrastructure. As you mentioned, there's a lack of exemplars in the industry, maybe ROI related issues, a lack of clarity based on costs and benefits, maybe not even having an executive champion or an executive sponsor. There could also be lack of skill sets, lack of relevant IT and business staff expertise. What are you seeing as among the biggest obstacles, and maybe more than the list I just rattled off?
Well, I would say that I think the largest obstacle in many organizations is simply a lack of relevant either IT or business staff experience or expertise in understanding the opportunities and then actually deploying solutions. Another is, unfortunately, there are failures as well as successes, and there's a lack of clarity on the feasibility and then the costs and benefits of some AI related projects. And so getting a clear view of what's the ROI and also the risk profile. So just that kind of trepidation, really fear around, can we really achieve the results we need? And then again, there are more and more cases where there are exemplars and they've been documented, or they're sharing their successes and the challenges that they work through. But that also, I think, is a factor, but less of a factor now, as again, many industries have had early adopters go through those stages and get to success.
So as we see more,
go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's good.
So as we see more of these exemplars, enable AI in their organizations, we're probably going to see more confidence from other organizations to move forward with these projects in the near future. So Ken, let's move on to infrastructure. Specifically, what effect do you think these AI workloads and use cases are having on key infrastructure requirements and storage in particular?
Okay. Well, first of all, of course, the demands of these workloads can be very significant and go across the entire data center, the elements of performance there. So it helps to think about your infrastructure as a system. But as relates to storage, especially, the different stages of AI and ML processing place different demands on the infrastructure for different stages of the process, but they all rely on data. So we need to ensure that data is available to each stage of the process with both the capacity and the performance in terms of latency and throughput required to deliver the required results in a timely manner. Also, for many organizations, this you're no longer thinking about storage in terms of terabytes, but instead petabytes. For example, we're running across many organizations now that manage more than a petabyte of just surveillance video data. And this can push many legacy solutions past their limits.
Okay, so great, thank you. Now, so we have an idea now about the main infrastructure requirements. Rajiv, I'd like to turn over to you. So what are some of the specific storage-related challenges encountered by enterprises as they adopt these new AI use cases? And how do they represent obstacles to enterprise AI success? Are they challenges related to performance, scalability, manageability, support for different protocols or data types? What are you seeing?
It's a very good question. Within the enterprise space is very much what Ken was explaining, that there is a hesitation, and hesitation is around absolutely come when you are selecting the storage for your workloads. Very much you need to understand that from a storage point of view, what type of the storage do you need? Is this a storage only for AI workloads? So you need to avoid that silo of the storage. You don't want to create a silo of storage just for AI workloads. Either your existing infrastructure needs to be simplified in a way which can accommodate the AI-related workloads, which are either VMs or containers or the native workload, or you select a storage solution which meet your requirement for the broader workload. That's one of the challenge we see on the enterprise side. The second thing is, like as you mentioned, scalability. AI data seems to grow very fast. There are life science instruments which generate multi-terabyte of the data per day. There are video surveillance solutions which has the different definitions of the pictures for object classification. They grow very, very fast. So that as soon as AI cross the learning curve and they start being into the production environment, then you need to relate that how my storage is going to grow, because that you are not able to cope it up when you are doing the POC phase or either you are doing the DevOps phase. That's the another thing is what we see, that storage needs to be like intelligent. You should not invest your time just to deploy the storage. The storage should not be complex. So from a storage solution selection point of view, it should be plug and play. It should understand what type of workload. It should be self-optimized. And that's where we see that if enterprise select the right storage solution, the adoption of AI can be accelerated for them at a very fast pace.
Great, thanks for that overview, Rajiv. The one thing I was thinking about, the other important attribute for AI workloads is analytics, right? So whether it's manual, machine-driven, analytics seem to go really hand in hand with AI workloads. So Ken, what do you see as the role of analytics in enabling successful enterprise AI initiatives? And what kind of analytics capabilities are most critical, do you think, from a storage perspective?
Well, on my way to answering that question, let me mention that storage analytics and infrastructure analytics, that for many enterprises, what their vendors brought to them, the solution providers brought to them, is really their first experience with artificial intelligence. It's a place where storage systems are creating value for entities based on these analytics frameworks and usually deployed in the cloud. The right analytics create actionable insight. Starts with visibility into storage, with integrated intelligence and exception handling. That adds value by predicting, preventing, and ideally remediating storage-related issues. Beyond storage, analytics can be used to identify performance bottlenecks across the entire stack, from the application itself all the way through to the CPU or GPU. And to the degree those capabilities are growing, that helps more quickly identify what is the bottleneck in my performance when bottlenecks do occur, so I can more quickly resolve them. Analytics are also very useful in capacity planning, whether that's based on extrapolating trends in the organization's infrastructure or modeling specific workloads. We're considering adding, X number of this kind of workload. What will be the impact on my infrastructure? And the ability to then model that and to see, is my infrastructure adequate, or am I going to run into bottlenecks that I need to work through on my way to production? And it's a way to stay ahead then of business requirements.
Great. So it's interesting. You mentioned that analytics is, for many organizations, their first foray into using AI technology. So we'll explore that a little bit more when we talk about some of the specific technologies that Tintri is offering. But let's talk a little bit about data and application management. So, there's a lot of talk about virtual machines. We've been talking about it for over a decade. We increasingly hear, though, the next step in this kind of evolution towards data and application management, that's containers. So we hear a lot about containers these days, and we know that containers are playing a big role in development environments. But Ken, how important is it to be able to support containerized AI workloads?
Great question. Most, I don't know, nearly all AI applications are being deployed as containers. But containerized workloads are not just for public cloud. They're being used more often in hybrid and on-premise environments, beyond development into production. And when it comes to storage, CSI, or container storage interface drivers, are the starting point for enterprise storage systems to be able to provide, storage, persistent storage for those containerized workloads.
So Rajiv, let me turn it over to you now. So from an infrastructure angle, we assume data storage needs to be optimized for containers. Can you describe what kind of optimizations are required, and what's the role of Kubernetes in all of this?
Yes, absolutely. See, look, from the benefit point of view, right? As Ken mentioned, that container-based microservices are becoming more mainstream. One of the reasons is that deploying the new set of application for development, DevOps, traditionally, if you are going native servers or VM, it could take you days to have that infrastructure ready. Container let you do that in hours, not in minutes. So that brings the flexibility that our development team, or even from development to the production, the deployment is very, very easy. There's a framework is developed around it within the data centers, and most of the data centers are leveraging that the speed and the flexibility of it. So now when a storage goes to such infrastructure, number one, it needs to have the awareness about that what type of infrastructure, so that intelligence needs to be there. That I'm serving data store for VM, or I'm serving data store to native application, I'm serving data stores to container, and optimize, because performance is a demand. Either you are serving data for VM or either serving the persistent data to container, the consistent performance. One of the things we are seeing that IntelliFlash container solution, we do the same performance with between the native, between the VM and the container. That's one of the benefits. It doesn't matter what type of workload, but at a file system level, having that intelligence within the storage space that can not only misunderstand your data set, but serve it properly the way application. That's the one way to commit the performance. So having a storage solution which has those intelligence components and which also has API level of capability to integrate in existing, right? Because sometimes customer doesn't know about, they already have a management layer, having the API level capability, you become seamlessly part of it, start talking their language. So these are some key components around the storage solution we see while participating in this space.
Great. So this is kind of a good segue into our next topic, which is really the theme for this discussion. That's unified storage. So Ken, we know that most AI workloads are file-based, but what do we mean by unified storage, and why is it important for AI and other modern enterprise workloads?
Yeah, when at DCIG, when we talk about unified storage, we mean at a minimum support for both block and file-based workloads, block protocol and file protocol support. And the benefits of that, they're multiple, but the idea is that a single storage solution has the capability, the potentiality of supporting all of the enterprise workloads from that single storage solution. And there's a lot of advantages from that, removing data silos so that data is available to all the processes at the point that those processes need to work on that data. It simplifies operations, a single storage management interface to learn, a single set of integrations to apply across authentication and data protection. So reducing storage management overhead, and then accelerating workload adoption and value by making data available to the multiple applications in an AI workflow for the processing and integration. And then again, confidence that the data is protected and it's going to be available across time to create value for the entity.
Yeah, so these are all attributes that I think lead us into the next section, which is really to transition a bit towards the Tintri technology side. And although enterprise AI is relatively new, or I should say AI workloads in the enterprise and commercial space are relatively new, IntelliFlash technology has actually been around for about a decade. And we know that one of the advantages of the IntelliFlash product line is its multi-protocol architecture, which directly ties into the unified storage advantages that you just mentioned, Ken. I'm going to follow up with Rajiv in a minute on this to go over the more the specific IntelliFlash differentiators. But before we go there, I know, Ken, you've had an opportunity to investigate the IntelliFlash platform on your own in the context of AI and other workloads. So maybe you can share with us some of your key observations.
Sure, I'm glad to do that. Well, first, yes, IntelliFlash is an established and well-regarded enterprise storage technology with thousands of customers. So it's got a strong track record in the enterprise data center and integrates well into that ecosystem and the set of tools that surround storage in the enterprise. Also, Tintri IntelliFlash now is backed by Data Direct Networks. DDN is a company with deep high-performance computing and AI infrastructure expertise. In fact, the newest IntelliFlash arrays are now using the proven DDN hardware platform, the NVMe solution that DDN also uses in its largest HPC and AI environments. And that has enabled IntelliFlash now to scale to multiple petabytes. Also, Yeah, IntelliFlash, yes, it's proven, but it's also innovative. I know now the data path has been re-engineered to be lockless. This enables low latency and high throughput through highly parallel NVMe optimized operation. And that is significant to take advantage of the other advances that are happening in infrastructure technologies. Also, although IntelliFlash systems have always supported both block and file protocols for virtualized environments, IntelliFlash has gained more robust and mature SMB and NFS file capabilities so that it enables IntelliFlash systems to deliver native file services for enterprise and HPC environments. And then finally, IntelliFlash really was an innovator in the all-inclusive licensing model. And that adds a lot of benefits, but especially agility. It enables IT to respond to changing business requirements without being held back by budget approvals, purchase processes, installation processes. And so this all-inclusive approach to licensing the capabilities of the system avoid what could be months of delay and again, enable IT to respond much more quickly to changes in business requirements.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. Those were more
Sure.
than shallow observations. There's pretty deep insights you have there. Sorry, were you going to add something else?
Nope, that was good. I think that's good.
Okay, Rajiv, how about maybe taking us one step deeper into the technology? What are the key attributes, to follow on what Ken was talking about, key attributes that differentiate IntelliFlash from other storage solutions, specifically for AI-related workloads?
Oh, I'm not hearing.
On mute.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
So, as like Ken was saying, right? Having multi-protocol, having a established hardware, there is a scalability. But fundamentally, from the IntelliFlash point of view, we always see that how to approach the complex problem with simplicity. So from that point of view, we look at that, keep the data as the main requirement, because the core importance for these AI workload is the data and the serviceability like around that data, the scalability of that data and the protection of that data. At underlying technology level, you can say everyone claim to be multi-protocol support, but specifically for AI workload, you need to have multi-protocol support at a level that one single file can be concurrently read and write via NFS or SMB. So having such capability within the storage space, that's where IntelliFlash has learned to grow with the learning from DDN side, where DDN storage has been always positioned for the what you call for HPC, and the new enterprise AI workload work nature is also like the workflows are same. So identifying those attributes proactively and putting them into the product, that has been, we are seeing that IntelliFlash key attribute has been developed. So multi-protocol, having fiber channel block and iSCSI brings that consolidation that you can serve multi-source data to multi-type of analytical applications. You don't need to have multiple storage. That from the scalability point of view, can you grow from 100 terabyte to multi-petabyte? That's where the IntelliFlash bring that. And one of the key feature from the product attribute for enterprise AI RAM, that even the AI customer doesn't understand what is their long-term requirement, even from the storage point of view. So having a storage solution which has all inclusive capability, where the capabilities are not phased into the licensing model. And sometimes that can be a very, very expensive learning where we have seen that, hey, do you know, I want to do HA, or I want to do sync wrap, or I want to do some other MS attribute which was not planned. So having a storage solution which all the licensing comes together, customer knows that what they are getting, and every component is in use without any surprise cost. That's where IntelliFlash, one of the key attribute is matching. That's why we are seeing lots of attraction from customer toward using the IntelliFlash for these workloads.
Great. So, you and Ken both talked about, multi-protocol support, scalability, the all-inclusive licensing. You mentioned analytics already, but let's talk a little bit more about the specific analytics capabilities that are offered by IntelliFlash, and maybe you can tell us how they specifically are benefiting customers. A little more detail.
Yes, and it's very much related to the complexity. Like infrastructures are already complex, and if you are bringing new state solution, how you not to waste more time on it, because your time can be useful in other aspects. So our like intentions, the way we do it, that it like there is a cloud-based analytic, there is an inbuilt analytic on premises which can give you a VM level and workload specific your performance criteria. But along with, we also have a cloud-based analytic layer, which is used even for the proactive support. If your hard drive is getting in trouble, system will let no support in inside once, or anything going wrong, you can define that what are my severity level of functionality are important for my workload. You can manually define it, and you can set a call home tag to it. So it will automatically call support before even customer getting engaged. So use of everyone loves like bringing the intelligent parameters and bringing the visibility to it. But how they are benefit for the end optimization, that's where we see more benefit. That's where we try to have conversation and learn more and more around the intelligent infrastructure. So it is a, like we are serving thousands of customers. One of the benefit having it that it gives us a broader view that how customers are using. Like take one example, if you need to see the uptime of the systems, you can see that 5 nines, 6 nines capabilities are shown at a cloud level, and you can monitor it. You can monitor your system from anywhere from the world. You are traveling and you still want to see how your storage is going. You can go to the cloud-based portal and you can do quite a lot. You can run reports. You want to see that what's happening with it, customized report, different department need for planning. So there's a good set of features and functionality, but our approach to intelligence infrastructure has not been feature, but what problem they solve to customer, how we keep them away from the system, how they just plug and play configure once and they can just monitor it, but they don't need to engage with the system. So those are some key benefit we see, uh, keeping the focus on the analytic layer. And future roadmap is we are making it more and more enriched in respect of customer use cases.
So Rajiv, thank you for that. You've been associated with IntelliFlash for a number of years. You and I have both seen a lot of the customer case studies and the quotes. So I don't think you'd say it's an exaggeration to say that IntelliFlash has a very enthusiastic customer base and pretty consistently high, very consistently high customer satisfaction ratings. So you and Ken both mentioned we have thousands of deployments across just about every industry. Maybe you can just walk us through some of the business results that enterprise customers have experienced with IntelliFlash and what this says about IntelliFlash as a key success factor, for AI initiatives.
Absolutely. See, IntelliFlash being a product which is serving multi-protocol, and if you look from the product offering point of view, they have from a small capacity to petabyte growth. So it's as a product, it fits from a small business unit to a bigger enterprise and the capable teams around. So there is a broader selection of the workload IntelliFlash can offer. Now, IntelliFlash always been efficient and proven itself with these thousands of customers, serving the SMB, NFS, ISCSI, FC for the virtualized environment. But after the acquisition within the DDN, we have leveraged the well-proven existing non-virtualized file server capability. That's where having those capability also give you that scalability and efficiency and the optimization which most of these enterprise AI workload are looking for. They need to be transparent in respect of legacy workload, new workload. That's where we see that that our existing customers are getting benefited for for this extension of the like IntelliFlash capability. The same customer who were running in virtualized environment, the enterprise AI is asking for maybe a non-virtualized for archival for the secondary storage solution. Maybe running the cameras on VM, on NVMe, high performance storage. So we are able to engage our existing customers with a bigger customers, existing base, which is moving toward enterprise AI. Those are first set of the adopter and using the capability of IntelliFlash.
And Rajiv, as Ken mentioned, Tintri's parent company, DDN, has had a long history of providing large-scale storage for AI and HPC workloads. Maybe now you can touch on the complementary nature of DDN and Tintri technologies. So for example, how can DDN's A3i and IntelliFlash, for example, together be used as a powerful infrastructure for AI use cases?
Absolutely. And see, our focus even for enterprise AI has been driven from the DDN engagement. DDN already has a good set of applications. They work very closely with a very big ecosystem because AI workload adoption is multi-vendor, multi-technology, multi-platform. Putting out that together as a solution, DDN A3i has been established name in it. So we realized that the same set of customer within there is a need for a type of storage where IntelliFlash fit very niche because the enterprise AI not only need a structured data, but there is a need for unstructured data. For the unstructured data, your A3i workload fits very well. But within that space like life science data or your retail data or your CCTV type of use cases, that's where your databases are like, you need a storage solution like IntelliFlash, and that's where we fit very well. So IntelliFlash in this way served itself to be a complementary within the DDN pre-existing AI workflow and the solution portfolio. And now that was a new addition to DDN. What we realized that for enterprise customer, bringing these learning, this technology, that means adoption, there are lots of tweaking, lots of flexibility needed from the solution point of view. We have the DDN expertise and bring that expertise to the enterprise on the Tintri side. So having the documentation, right? That's the one thing we realized that traditional old documentation doesn't work. How do you make quick start adoptions? That's where customers are. So learning these small things and bringing the optimization to the product, we see these two products coming together, fulfilling and complementing each other and providing a broader set of functionality to the customer.
Excellent, thank you for that. So guys, before we get to the Q&A portion, let me ask, let me throw it back to Ken for a minute and ask him, from his perspective, why enterprises should consider DDN and Tintri instead of the enterprise storage companies that they already work with or might be considering. Can you have anything to add to that?
Sure. Yeah. And actually, I jotted a couple notes as Rajiv was talking a few moments ago, kind of jogged some of my recollections. One of the neat things about, again, the all-inclusive approach to licensing for IntelliFlash is that enhancements to the IntelliFlash platform don't just benefit the next generation of systems, but actually benefits the existing customers. I know of two separate operating systems releases that created substantial additional performance for the hardware that was already out in the field. The optimizations that were done to make sure that NVMe-based systems, really fly without any locks, no obstacles. Well, it turns out some of those benefits still apply in solutions that have SAS drives in them. And those just get, as long as you're current with IntelliFlash, you get those, install the software, boom, you get a substantial performance benefit. So that's just another way that IntelliFlash creates value for clients. The value increases over time because you get the benefits of the development that's being done. And the other thing was, I mentioned kind of the idea of cross-fertilization. And really, it seems to me that is a two-way street for DDN. Yes, IntelliFlash customers will get the benefit of the expert knowledge and experience that DDN has built up over the years in supporting AI and machine learning applications, but also from my previous conversations with the executive team at DDN, they're intentionally bringing together engineering to cross-fertilize capabilities so that, for example, snapshot capabilities have been added to the A3i platform, is my understanding. Things that enterprises expect from their storage systems is flowing up or across to the DDN A3i systems to make them easier to and more rapidly to be more rapidly implemented and easier to manage across time, so that those benefits flow across the whole portfolio, which I think DDN is perhaps uniquely positioned to benefit from that cross-fertilization or that approach. But in terms of why DDN and Tintri and IntelliFlash versus maybe the vendors you've been working with before in the enterprise, I want to be just, again, DDN's storage expertise and leadership in high performance computing that goes across many years. They've actually seen the challenges associated with supporting a particular application and know what to expect, so they can have a better shot at really helping you be successful with AI implementations. And then again, back to unified storage. You've got workloads that are creating data. Probably your existing enterprise applications are the source of much of the data that you're going to be working with. And so having a storage solution that is supporting those core applications already, and then being able to bring AI applications across and being able to process that data without having to move it into a separate silo, advantageous. And then just the performance, the analytics, the all-inclusive licensing that's part of the IntelliFlash infrastructure and architecture, all pluses for sure. And then with all these things combined, IntelliFlash does offer a compelling workload consolidation platform. But as part of DDN also, and consulting with them as we go through into production with AI workloads, the ability to recognize, well, where are the limits? And then how do we serve successful AI initiatives or create successful AI initiatives when they go beyond the capability of what the customer already has in their hands, and just have the breadth of the portfolio available to the DDN and Tintri folks, creates I think a better opportunity for success.
Thanks, Ken. That was a very comprehensive summary. And thanks again for reminding us about those additional advantages that we may have touched on earlier, but you really brought it to the forefront, the things like the common architecture that we have across all of the products within the IntelliFlash product line, and the ability to provide a future proofing, right, with an open upgrade model that allows organizations to take advantage of the latest and greatest technologies with minimal disruption. So all excellent points. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So now we have a few minutes for Q&A. Why don't we take a look at some of the questions that have come in from our audience. The first one here is around the cloud model. My company is pursuing a cloud operating model. How does IntelliFlash fit into a cloud model? Rajiv, you want to take that one?
Yes. And it's fundamentally true, right? That integration with cloud, having hybrid approach, a set of application and keeping. Even we are seeing that ransomware, one of the most security term, which is affecting lots of people. So there is a sense of data protection. And one of the way approach is done to the data protection is by having data at multiple sources. And but at the same time, there are more to it from the solution point of view. But in respect of cloud connectivity, IntelliFlash right now has the capability to take your snapshots and backup and recovering from it to the cloud. You can do AWS. There is an S3 based integrated, very simple configuration. You just define your target, you give your address, and you are done. And then it allows you to having a snapshot, and you can define multiple parameters under it. That what is your frequency. So in future, as the product is moving, we are also looking to having the stack running within the cloud. That's the next level where that IntelliFlash is moving in the future. So yes, cloud is very much core approach from the solution.
So you started talking about ransomware. Coincidentally, the next question that we have here is about ransomware. Someone is saying there's been a lot of news about ransomware attacks, which is true. There was another big widespread attack that came out within the last week, actually. What can I do to protect against such attacks, specifically on my AI data?
So it's absolutely data protection, right? That if your system is captured by ransomware, that means you can't access your data anymore. The very first effort will be to, restore it from a point where it was not affected. So having that capability, you can go and you'll be having the inbuilt very efficient snapshot capability, because the snapshots are good, but you need to look at it that there are other parameters like performance and all other things. So how transparently your snapshot is without affecting your, if we are doing for a shorter window, trying to keep separate that data. So some of those capabilities which we from, and there is a bigger space of security requirement, but I am just looking from the storage point of view that how the ransomware can be addressed. And one of the way is that efficient snapshot capability and let you restore from the point your data was not captured the last, and having the short interval between the two like snapshot capability. So these are some aspects which IntelliFlash will support. And we have seen customer adopting IntelliFlash specifically for these reasons, that there are some capability to protect the data against.
Okay, thank you, Rajiv. We have another question that's, well, it's related to cloud and analytics. It's what is the advantage of cloud-based analytics? Isn't it better to have analytics integrated into my own storage system rather than in the cloud?
Both. I think Ken might add more, but I will see that the analytic being intelligent, first thing is you are aware what infrastructure and you are and what you are serving. From IntelliFlash point of view, we see that differentiation, that on-premises analytic requirements are different, maybe more focused on system recovery, system health, and all those things. But when you are looking at one site and multiple sites, like you have 4 sites, your storage is running, multiple arrays are running, and you want to see that how the workloads are shuffling, how your growth trend going to be, what are your peak points, what are your low points, how you can grow transparently, and to take that decision that storage should able to give you some meaningful analytic. And that's where the cloud analytic comes, that having a one window, doesn't matter what site you are, having a collective look from monitoring point of view without sacrificing the security. That's prevail. And we have set of customer who doesn't allow us cloud analytic. Mm-hmm. And that's where the on-premises like analytic inbuilt into the product comes into the play. That, hey, what you can see, not at the level, not the multi-site, but on-site based system level analytic is inbuilt there. So need for both, but both needs to be different. That's the way we approach
it. Ken, you want to add to that?
I would. First of all, the cloud-based analytics, if properly integrated with the support infrastructure and the support team, can definitely help to enhance uptime of each array. But then having the visibility across the entire set of systems that have been deployed to customer sites, or at least those that have all said, yes, you can upload my telemetry data, does give that opportunity, not just for uptime, but also for optimizing performance over time, to recognize, that the Tintri folks would have visibility into how different workloads are performing in different scenarios with different settings, perhaps, and recognize, oh, here's a suboptimal configuration versus an optimal, and to be able to advise or implement changes, perhaps. So again, uptime plus optimized performance across time are capabilities that I think are uniquely available when the vendor is able to pool that telemetry data from all the deployed systems, or a large number of deployed systems.
Great additional points there. We have time for, I think, one more question. So this one's around unified storage. It's an interesting question. So it says you talked about the benefits of multi-protocol unified storage. How are you delivering unified storage without compromising performance at scale? Rajiv, do you want to start?
Yeah. So it's a good question. And that's we have seen also, right? Storage itself domain, as you see, year by year, there are new capacity drives coming, and they are fundamentally increasing the what you can put in a 2U box, like as a storage. Uh, uh, that's having the capability to consistently delivering that growth even within a system, and then you grow outside the system, right? In that way you add the expansion you bring, and then you bring hybrid, like your capacity data residing over the HDD like spindle media, and then you have the NVMe leveraging for the cache. So there are multiple models. Fundamentally what we have in our this experience for IntelliFlash stack, uh, we have looked from the file system point of view, the very first approach, having the file system level capability to distinguish type of data set. Because complexity of growth other than in multi-protocol environment and the unified storage environment, having that concurrently you running multiple, that delivering the consistent performance for either file or either for the block protocol. So having those capability inbuilt, plus on top of it, you build your notification and your intelligence that how uh, you keep an eye on performance, how you let user know, how you misidentify who is the culprit. Making all those things automated, making it simplify, assure that once you are able to address a problem proactively, then your performance didn't get affected. You address that problem. So technology and plus systems around it. And then what we do, as Ken was mentioning, we keep these fine tunings. We and the way we release those fine tuning and enhancement to customer by having the free software upgrades. So once you buy IntelliFlash, all inclusive, commit to you that till the time you are in service agreement and till the time product is supported, you will keep receiving those updates. And we see that operating systems are evolving. The packet size applications are the way and applications are consuming data, that is changing. So having a storage where the IntelliFlash commits to you that today you might be using VM, but tomorrow when containers become mainstream, I will be serving you the same storage with the containers and something like that.
So this is really where the intelligence comes in to kind of help address these scalability issues that you would see it with other implementations of large scale, trying to be large scale environments for AI, right? We can overcome those restrictions with a lot of the intelligence that's built in.
Correct.
Okay, thank you guys. It looks like we're come to the end of our allotted time for today's Tintri Ask the Experts session. I'd like to thank again our guests, Ken Clipperton from DCIG and Rajiv Sharma from the Tintri IntelliFlash product team. Gentlemen, I think this was a very engaging and hopefully educational session for our audience. Again, the webcast is recorded, so for our audience members, please forward the link to your colleagues, and please visit us at tintri.com/IntelliFlash and ddn.com/A3i to learn more about these products. You can also access the DCIG brief on unified storage for enterprise AI. Thank you, Ken, for putting that together. You can also get additional information on Tintri solutions for enterprise AI and other use cases on the Tintri website. The DCI website, I should also mention, is another great resource for information about storage and other technologies from an analyst and market research perspective. Thank you all again for joining us today, and we'll hope to see you again on another Tintri Ask the Experts webcast. Good day.
Thank you, Ram. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure.